As the official ethics committee for NDP, I'd like to inform you now that I chose to not click start recording until now. So now we're recording.
And now you've left it hanging. Scott, those images you'll have to share as some sort of tournament prize at some point.
Oh, dear.
I think that's a must. Talking of tournament prizes, Mr. Hovel, are you scaling your wooden spoon trophy up at the moment? There it is.
Sneak peek.
Ooh.
Blurry sneak peek.
False perspective.
Oh, there it is.
Getting there. So, yeah, we'll scale it up, but it will take 5 hours to print fully scaled. So we'll get there.
You're going to need to decide, Tom, whether you want to keep that trophy if you come last in the Ipswich Classic.
Just already initial your name on it.
Are you proud that we've got confidence and faith in you, Tom, already?
Yeah.
Oh dear. We're only a couple of weeks away now from the Ipswich Classic, though. That's not far away. Giving out some NDP prizes for last place.
Are we wanting one of these as well?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we can get.
So-
If you've got a spare one, Tom, we can get it, and a bit of gold spray paint to make it look really classy.
Oh yeah. I've got a spoon. I've got a spoon ready as well to slot in it or go with it. So.
Okay.
See what you're missing, Feeksy? You have the opportunity to adorn your shelf with this sort of tat.
I know. I need to. I wish I had more time for tournaments. I really do.
Feeks isn't winning any wooden spoons. He's far too good.
I'm solidly mid-table. I'm not winning spoons. I'm not winning anything.
Oh dear. Well, let's not talk about our Blood Bowl prowess. Let's. Should we get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, why not?
Cool. Play the intro. Hello, everyone. Welcome to New Dice Please, the bite-sized Blood Bowl podcast brought to you by the people at Blood Bowl Live. My name is Chris. Joining me this week, Mr. Scott Bryant. Scott, what is your favourite soup?
Favourite soup? Probably beef.
Just beef soup.
Do you want me to mention a brand? Are we looking for sponsorship deals this
No.
week, or just generally?
No, we can just have beef soup. That's fine.
That was quite aggressively response. Just beef.
Just beef. You just got a steak and shoved it in a blender.
It's just an
basically,
oxo
I do.
cube and hot water, isn't it?
Just Bovril.
It's just Bovril.
I just put it to you other gentlemen, the pressure of answering the question first.
Scott does always have to go first, to be fair. Joining us also, Mr. Tom Hoffel. Tom, favourite soup?
Has to be Heinz tomato.
Beautiful. And joining us, Mr. Tom Feeks. Tom, favourite soup?
If it's tinned Heinz tomato, if I've got time, a spiced pumpkin. A homemade one.
What?
I'm going to go for a creamed cauliflower soup. Is my favourite, which I've had for tea this evening, and it's been delicious, homemade because I had the time. But we're not talking about soup this week. No, instead we're talking about something that I think we've actually touched on a couple of times in the past through other kind of conversations, through some hot takes, and through some other things. We've ended up having a little kind of discussion about which linemen within the game are the best. And we thought we'd actually have a proper look. Let's have a look at all the teams and let's decide who we think are kind of the best linemen that the game has produced. We're going to go through by tier. So we're going to look tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And we're going to kind of pitch who we think the best lineman within that tier is. There's lots of crossover. I think lots of quite similar linemen. So it'll be interesting to kind of see where we think the best linemen are in the game. Some with skills, some without skills, some quicker, some slower, all that sort of stuff. We will see which one we are picking. And let's start with tier 1, I think. Let's start at the top tier of teams, the coward's choice of teams out there. And we'll see which one out of all of the tier 1 teams, which lineman do we think is the best? I will get the ball rolling on this one. I had a little look through the lists. I had a little look through the teams, and there's lots of teams in tier 1 with linemen with skills. And I kind of thought probably going to go with a lineman with a skill. And then on reflection, I haven't. And I'm going to claim that Skaven linemen are the best linemen in tier 1. No objections. Fantastic. Let's move on to tier 2.
I didn't want to mention Skaven. They were on my shortlist, but I feel like we fanboyed over them so hard a few weeks ago. I kind of wanted to move away from them. But yeah, they are solid. The movement 7 is fantastic, and they do the job of being that sacrificial piece. If you need them to be, they'll gum up the works. Edge 3's all right.
I think I think it's the speed and the cost. I think it's movement 7 for 50k. I get that you kind of lose a point in the armor for it. Armor 8 is a bit squishy, but I think their cost and then what you get for it, I think is as someone who likes a quick team, I like having a lineman with that extra point of movement.
It's interesting because tier 1 has got the most linemen in it, so it's got 13 linemen in it. So it is interesting, like you say, there's lots of ones in there that've got some pretty good skills on them. But similar to you, I went mid-range as well with a bit of a kind of a outfield one, which is orcs, of orc linemen.
Ooh.
On a similar thing, that they're apart from dwarfs, they're the only AV10 ones. But they're 50k, so they're 20k cheaper. Movement 5, strength 3, and it's all probably what you've got to think about is what are you using the lineman for? Well, majority of the time they're kind of just getting in the way, a bit of cannon fodder. So that was where I was coming out with orcs. But to put to your point, yours is potentially better on the basis that if they get knocked down, they've still got enough movement to roughly do the same as any other player, up for 3 and then move for the rest. So they are quite good at repositioning themselves and getting in the way.
I think we've almost gone opposite ends. Like I've gone for what I feel like is the affordable agile lineman, which isn't very agile, but it's quick. And that's kind of, I'm counting that in it. And you've kind of gone for almost the affordable bash lineman who's going to take the hits maybe a bit better.
Yeah.
And again, neither of us have gone for any skills, which I think is interesting. Mr. Bryan.
I have to say, having played elves for the last couple of seasons and knowing how when even a lineman, at 70k, they might have edge 2, and they might have, the extra movement on wood elves and the extra armor point on dark elves. Pro elves are just poor for 60k as well. So for me, I would definitely be looking at Skaven purely because of the cost. That factor, I think, is phenomenal in terms of, and Edge on 3+ is not a bad thing either. It's 67% of the time you're going to get it. And when you've got a re-roll as well, you're looking at 80% if you want to spend a re-roll on it. So it always will give you that threat, especially if you're down in terms of numbers towards the end of the game. So for tier 1, I do like the Skaven. We talked about it, as Mr. Feeks rightly said, and we've almost done it to death. I think Amazons are very underrated, though, still. To have dodge as an inbuilt skill, because everybody nodding there as well. Yes, they're one short of that Skaven in terms of 6. But if you've got a built-in dodge there as well, it's automatically a defensive skill, and it allows you to reposition with a bit more consistency as well. And we know, having seen a lot of good coaches, a lot of people in the meta as well at tournaments, they can be very, very dangerous. It only takes one or two, one skill on a couple of linemen, and it really can change the whole balance of the team. So if we are considering the cannon fodder versus how they can impact the team dynamic, I think Skaven are fantastic. I think then for me, I think Amazons are pretty much that I'm torn between Skaven and Amazons, but I would like, if I was doing a team, I'd be more than happy to pay 50k for a dodge piece, with movement 6.
Feeks, what
Armor's
did you
8
go
as a
for?
Skaven wood elf coach, I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, Feeks, what did you go for in the end? Did you go for a skill-based sort of lineman?
I have gone for a skill-based lineman. I've ended up with Amazons, but I started off. I considered Skaven and I considered Orcs because, on the one hand, you want a lineman to be able to stand around, and you want them to be able to take the hits, and you want them to be able to stay on the pitch as long as they can. The Skaven, the speed is really hard to ignore. My only criticism with the Skaven lineman is a lot of the time when playing Skaven, you want to detach and you want to screen, and that Edge 3 without the built-in reroll. I'd rather lose a point of movement and have dodge for the same price, because movement 6 is still decent. You can still manage that quite well.
I thought we were going to end up with 4. I thought that more of us would pick linemen with skills on them than we have done. I think Amazon and Norse were interesting ones when they were kind of introduced, because they almost mirrored each other with the block and the dodge, which I think was really interesting. The two teams can very much mirror each other in the way that they're set up, very similar. And I expected well. So I think it's quite good that we're kind of looking at it and we're actually saying maybe the skills aren't everything, especially when it comes to linemen, because you're maybe more prone to doing some random skills on them. And in a tournament, you're not often giving them skills. And actually, I think what we're all saying is probably when it comes to linemen, cost is a big factor, because you want to be able to flesh out the squad, easily replace, not be stunned by journeyman too much in a league setting. So I think that's quite interesting.
Bit of quick question though, because I just kind of question myself about the Orcs. Now, the books say tier 1, but I've just quickly gone on to Tour Play, and it's saying they're tier 2.
There's 2 different things depending on what link you click on in the NAF as well.
Yeah.
I don't see any world how they can be considered anything other than tier 1. But no, I did see that as well.
Yeah, it's just an interesting thing because again, I just went on to the Ipswich Classic registration to double check and register a new team, and the Orcs are tier 2, which was interesting to see. But in the book and also on other websites, they are tier 1.
Interesting. So, Tom, in which case, what lineman would you go for if we are not counting Orcs in tier 1 then?
So originally I was actually putting in Norse, because again, I've never played Norse, but they've always been pretty effective. And there again, all of us have gone for that 50k standard bracket. Looking down the line, it's an interesting one because clearly Norse and Amazon are pretty much the same, just one's got block, the other one's got dodge. Norse do come with drunkard, but they've also got thick skull, so they've got 3 skills. The Skaven are the same price, and they're no different apart from the extra 1 movement. So it's an interesting one. Would you sacrifice a skill for an extra space movement?
I think if you're going for long plays, that's the thing for me, which Norse linemen struggle against as well. So, and if you are looking for the complete bash outfit, yeah, you can't get better than that in terms of having block and thick skull, straight out the box. If, however, you're looking at it as a complete entity for Norse, apart from their Valkyries, these are the fastest guys on the pitch as well, which 6, and then you're in Orc territory as well. So with a Skaven, for example, just going back to the Skaven, 2 go for it, and you've got almost another gutter runner. Well, actually, strength 9 gutter runner. Stick sure feet on them, and it's thank you very much indeed. So I think it depends again, Tom, on exactly as you said. What's the role? Are they cannon fodder? Do you want them as a coach to play a specific role within your particular team and setup?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing which we maybe haven't considered is what TV are we playing this as? Because straight out of the box, Amazons are incredibly powerful, but higher TV, you're going to have a couple of people with tackle, and suddenly the dodge just isn't really that good anymore. And you've got an immediate counter to it, and the block. Yes, there's wrestle, but there's no real counter to block.
Except wrestle.
Except wrestle, but you know what I mean. It's there is a counter, but it's not a counter that's going to completely negate the skill.
Yeah, it's not going to turn it off entirely.
Yeah.
Chris, what about your beloved skinks?
Well,
because of course they come with dodge and stunty. I know they're 3+ on the edge, but then that's the same as Amazons, isn't it? There's fewer of them unless you want to go for a complete skink build.
I think they are, the skink movement is fantastic, and they do a fantastic job. I just think within tier 1, I think part of the problem with this entire exercise that we're going to do is obviously all the linemen are kind of suited to the team in which they're in, and it's. I don't think there are many other teams short of goblins and stuff that you would be like, oh, actually, I'll trade a goblin lineman for a skink any day of the week. I don't know how many other teams there are where you would be like, you know what, I would sacrifice. In the Skaven team, I wouldn't rather have skinks than Skaven linemen. Because I think they're too expensive and will go down and get hurt too quickly. So within the lizard team, they're great. I guess when you find yourself down, if you get unlucky and you find yourself down Saurus and you're then relying on the skinks, you can get yourself in trouble very, very quickly. So I think they're very well suited for the team that they're in. Do I objectively think that they're one of the best linemen out there? No, I'd take a clan rat every day. Okay, that's tier 1. All done then. Let's move on to tier 2 and what we think is the best tier 2 lineman. For me, it's quite easy. I've said it before. I'll say it 100 times again, but I won't say it straight away. I'll leave Tom Feeks to go first. What have you gone for your best tier 2 lineman?
I know exactly who you've gone for. They were on my list, but I'll let you come round to them. I'm going to do potentially a not very popular choice, but I've gone humans. Because looking across the stat board, I know that you're looking at me a little bit disappointed there, Chris, and I know why. Because you're thinking, yeah, but looking through the list, who else have we got in tier 2?
So in tier 2, do you want a list of them? So you've got rotters, Nurgle rotters, vampire thralls, necromantic horror zombies, tomb king, skeleton linemen, Black Orc, Goblin Bruisers, Imperial Nobility lineman, Chaos Renegade, Human Lineman, Khorne, Bloodbowl Marauder, and Elven Union lineman, and Chaos Chosen Beast Runners.
Do you know what the thing is, though? You said humans, and I did immediately go like, but actually, when you read out the list, I'm kind of like, they are. Humans are the ultimate average team, aren't they? They're the ultimate jack of all trades, master of none. But a movement 6, edge 3, strength 3, armor 9. It is completely average, but it's 50k and it will do a job. And you're only one block away from being just a slightly slower human blitzer. So I don't think I can actually argue with you that much. I think they do the job.
And as well, for 50k, a lot you're getting into the tier 2. A lot of them are getting a bit more expensive, and the rotters are a bit less, but they're rotters. They're not. I don't think they're that good. You're only 1 point of movement off a line rat, and you gain an extra point in armor. It does seem like the boring choice because humans are that jack of all trades kind of thing, but what else do you want your lineman for? Your linemen are ultimately going to die. AV9 is going to keep them alive for a little bit, and they're only 50k.
No,
I think if you look at the others on that 50k roster as well, Tom, I think you've got to say the humans are pretty much there because I was just looking at the other humans, the Imperial Retainers. Yeah, they're 45k and they've got Fend. But again, for some random reason that only GW will know, they're armor 8. Thralls are only armor 8. Okay, they're only 40k. We know, though, however, going back to the conversation, this is going to be, personal preference. We know with a good vampire coach, Thralls can be ridiculously good. They can be that sort of surprise, couple of skills, especially, stick kick on them, and they can have a big influence in terms of how the match goes.
Yeah.
But straight out of the box, I think humans really tough to beat.
Jesus
into this
Christ.
stuff.
All right, Tom, calm
Tom,
down.
calm down, Tom.
It's not that bad. Smashing your rhubarb.
Don't put books on tops of lots of filament. It falls off.
Get the shit out of me.
It's interesting. You met nobility on my wildcard shout, which if someone else has mentioned humans, it came around to me. I was going to mention them because 45k to have Fend across the board.
But the fact is, they've got Edge 4+ though.
Oh yeah, it's not. That's why they're my surprise shout.
It's a strange one because we're talking about this, and I'm starting to see kind of correlations between skills and movement or armor or something like that. So for example, we compared like the Skaven. Skaven have got no skills, but they've got an extra movement compared to the other ones in the same cost bracket. But then you look at things like the human lineman, which is your bog standard 50k and 6, 3, 3, 4, 9. And then you look at Imperial Nobility, which are only 5k less. They've got Fend, okay, but they've got one less on the armor and one more on the edge. It's like, doesn't make sense.
It's interesting. I feel like it almost tells you something about where where GW value like the position of the lineman within the team, like, because firstly, how much do they value the skill Fend to make them think that if we're going to give them Fend, we're going to have to not, like, it's not like they're sacrificing 1 point of something for a skill. They've clearly gone, okay, we're going to give them Fend, so we're going to have to reduce their armor. And they've gone, actually, that's also too much. We're also going to have to reduce their agility, and then we'll just reduce their cost a bit in line with it. The way that they're doing the payoff does make you think that they maybe they don't value Fend, or really do value Fend as a skill. Maybe they do value Fend as a skill, so that they're like, we can't just punish you with one skill, we've got to punish you with 2, and then use the money to balance it.
Equally, they're almost forcing you to use Fend, because that's the only way you're going to move out of someone's tackle zones, is that you're forcing them to attack you, and you go, right, I'm going to Fend, you can't follow up.
It almost narratively makes sense that you have to sacrifice your edge to get the Fend skill. That then also saying, well, I'm also going to make you a bit cheaper, but I'm going to take away your 1 point of strength is then an odd one. It's an odd balance. Tom, Scott, sorry, you go.
Question for all of you gentlemen. Just on that subject of humans, whether they are the vanilla boys, whether they are Chaos Renegade, whether they are OWA, it's the same profile. Does that profile for Chaos Renegade and OWA humans need to change? A, to either improve the base stat line, which is the human lineman, or B, to reflect a bit of the lore, the narrative. Has the Chaos Renegade person become corrupted? Has the OWA human got something different about them?
I think with OWA, I almost wonder whether they do a bit of nerfing to like the human thrower. The dwarfs all get a nerf in that team as well, which is really frustrating. The team itself, kind of with the narrative of being the old boys coming out of retirement and clubbing together, I actually almost wonder whether the retainer lineman for the Imperial Nobility would be better placed in that team than the human lineman, whether that would actually be better, because it's like they're not quite as strong, they're a bit more standoffish, they're not quite as agile. I think narratively maybe they fit better than the human lineman.
And in fact, looking at them, the Chaos Renegade lineman is the better one, because their primary is general, like all of them, but it also has got mutation. So that's also a bonus. So you can actually get something quite, well, very nicely skilled straight off the bat.
So what? So Tom, you were going Feeks, you were going humans. Tom and Scott, what was your choice for tier 2?
Mine was Chaos Chosen. So it was the fact that horns is so devastating as a piece, because then that just gives you literally more or less all your players have got really good blitzing technique straight off the bat.
I was the same because I feel like I feel like they're one of the teams where you could run an all lineman build quite nicely. You'd miss the strength, but you do effectively have an entire team of blitzers. You are paying for it with the 60k. It is more expensive, but to have the potential of a strength 4 piece everywhere on the field, I think is unmatched. I think they absolutely take it for me.
Yeah, and they are one of the two most expensive, both at 60k. But the other one that's 60k is Elven Union Lineman, and you look at their stats next to each other.
Edge 2, great. Armor 8 though, only movement 6.
Yeah,
like,
and you're paying the same amount for something that, as we've all kind of said, is pretty bog standard human stats, but with horns.
Again, also with the Elven Union linemen, they are it again shows you how much GW value Edge in the game over anything else, because they are saying we're going to sacrifice a point of, so Skaven sacrifice a point of armor for a point of movement and remain at 50k. Elven Union are basically sacrificing a point of of armor for a point of agility, and they're having to go up to 60. So GW clearly value agility within the game much more than they value speed.
Yeah, and also their primary is general and agility for
so many options with the skills.
But for the Beastman runner, their primary is general, mutation, and strength.
Yeah,
straight off the bat, you can have a mighty blow lineman.
Mighty blow block tackle so quickly. Scott, what was your choice?
My choice would be something with mutation in for that primary tree. That would be my thing. So if I was picking a human, it would be the Chaos Renegade human. I still think there's a lot to be said, but then again, if I was picking, I would definitely choose a Chaos Beastman over a Rotter. Okay. Just purely because of that movement, that extra square of movement. And yeah, okay, you've got the armor value 9, you've got decay, which is plague ridden, and I know they're only 35k rotters, but for me, it's about having something which can make an instant impact into the game.
I think that's a good shout. I think that the options that the Chaos Chosen have.
Yeah, I had no complaints at all that it was on my list as chosen. It's the only thing that tips it was the extra 10k. But I would happily pay it for if I could mix and match and just have a couple of them, I'd absolutely have them there.
So let's go to tier 3 then. An interesting one, tier 3, because when you look at the teams that are in tier 3, the kind of you've almost kind of got 3 categories, haven't you? Like there's not as much variety as everywhere else. You've got some minor kind of differences between them, but you've kind of almost got the variation is more limited. Scott, what's your tier 3 lineman choice?
My tier of choice would actually be goblins, because they come in with dodge, they come in with right stuff. No, I've lied. Apologies, I withdraw that. Errata, to quote Jimmy Fantastic. I would go for Underworld Goblin because they've got dodge, right stuff, stunty, but they've got mutations in their primary as well. That's the key thing for me now. Underworld, you could say, well, you only get one bloody goblin. Yeah, but when that goblin, as we know from personal experience, when that goblin has 2 heads, when that goblin has, everything under the sun, they are just filth.
So you're confusing various goblins here, because the goblin you're talking about is a Chaos Renegade goblin.
Was it?
Underworld, you can take loads of
So
goblins.
Underworld, you
In
can
that
take
case, I errata
no,
my
no.
errata.
Yeah.
I errata my errata, and I will stick with Underworld Goblin because they've got mutations. And I think to have loads of those will mess. Look at Feces' face.
Well, I know what they want to do is they both want to chip in and tell you that Underworld are not tier 3.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what tier you're in.
No, they're on tier 2.
So you can
absolutely
run
tier 1.
So you can
Oh,
run.
sorry, my apologies. I was looking on the NAF list and it says Goblin, and I just went to Goblin. All right.
But to kind
I'll
of
go with normal.
to save you here
Go on.
though, the normal goblin. Let's talk about the normal goblin.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's only strength 2, but he's armor 8, which is the highest armor of all the linemen within tier 3. Edge 3, dodge, stunty, and right stuff. Does the normal goblin doesn't come with thick skull? It's only the
Correct.
yeah.
The bruiser does.
So actually, it is the beefiest from a armor perspective of all of the goblins, and retains that movement 6 as well. So it's also one of the quickest within tier 3.
It is
If I
the
looked
quickest.
if I looked at the other things, like gnomes, I know they've got wrestle, I know they've got jump up, etc. And I know people are starting to, to understand how to play gnomes as well. We've seen what Carnage Nobblers can do in terms of their whole setup. If you want to just flood them, plus they've got as well swarming, haven't they?
Nobblers have
Nobblers
sorry,
don't,
Snotlings.
do.
Snotlings, sorry, yeah. Apologies, I need to read my typing a bit more clearly. So yeah, I think there's several. When I went through this, I went through it in terms of what would I not take, rather than where am I picking, what would just that process of elimination. So yeah, I still think goblins have some of the coolest sculpts.
Yeah, I agree with that. They've got the thematics on the goblins is fantastic, and as you say, they're one of the most expensive, so they're 40k. Ironically, like the halflings, which is obviously their alter egos, have got exactly the same skills, but they have got 1 less movement, and they're 10k less, so they're 30k each.
Well, they're also 1 less armor, aren't they? Because the standard halfling lineman is only armor 7.
Yeah.
So again, they've got 2 stats that are different within that team, and GW only value that at 10k within the stunty kind of tier 3 world.
Can someone also confirm in the last FAQ, didn't goblins get passing on their primary as well?
Yes, they did. The
Goblin bomber got passing, and has access to that now. So Tom Hovel, are you also going goblin as your choice then?
I was actually going to go for gnome, just purely on the basis that the wrestle for me is a nice little thing, because again, we're talking about them being disruptors. The lineman is that thing that gets in the way, just causes problems, causes disruption. And seeing how effective wrestle can be, thank you very much, Scott, in my last game, it's one of those things that that's actually quite a decent skill. If you can pass your armor on 7+, and not be chucked off the pitch, that's quite a nice little skill to keep having people to be pushed down. So if, for example, you're playing against, say, a orc team or a dwarf team or something, that's really, really bad, because you're having to literally spend a whole turn standing up your players because of wrestle. So that was where I was coming from that. Although they're 40k as well. They've got right stuff, stunty, jump up and wrestle, and they're more or less the same as a halfling, and they've got 2 extra skills there. They don't have a dodge though.
I think weirdly, Tom, we're on the same page today. I was also going to go with goblins because not goblins, gnomes. I was also going to go with gnomes because I felt the goblin linemen are. The goblin knight within the goblin team. So the goblin linemen are great, but weirdly, they're not the best goblins. Like the bruisers within the dark elves have thick skull, which but otherwise are exactly the same. So I find it a bit weird that the goblins within the goblin team are not the best version of goblins arguably that are there. Halflings, I think it just feel a bit too squishy. I know the dodge is good, but they just feel a bit squishy. But I also really like the fact that in a game where block can absolutely rule it, and for a lot of people can be the first choice skill, and can be very important. Having a bunch of wrestle jump up pieces is absolute disruptive chaos, and I think I really like it. I think it was a really interesting move for Gnomes caught everyone off guard when they suddenly announced Gnomes when we were all waiting for Tomb Kings or Chaos Dwarfs or anything like that at the time. And they suddenly dropped this team that can be so disruptive. And I think the Limans, I think I would love to have the choice in maybe in like Old World Alliance. Another change for them is get rid of the halflings and put gnomes in there instead, as the option for your throwable piece. I think that could be great fun. That could be absolute great chaos. So yeah, I would go gnomes as well. Feeks, where are you sitting in tier 3?
I think there's potentially an argument to be had for each one of them. The only one I'm struggling to have an argument for is for flings, even though I've tried to find one. Looking at the stats, that's what I've been rifling through my book with. On the face of it, the goblins are the best ones. Yeah, you look at the stats, they are the best ones out there. Yes, it is weird that they are not the best goblins you can play. If they had thick skull, I think it would be very different. They are objectively the best ones there. My vote was going to be for gnomes as well, because like you say, block is the skill that most people are going to take. And I've only played gnomes once, and it was against my Khorne team, which was absolutely cursed. All I could seem to roll was skulls on both downs, and my opponent was just choosing when to turn me over. It was just okay, fair enough. You've got wrestle. Oh yeah, well I'm not going to wrestle it. Okay, fine. That's what. But it's a real surprisingly good skill, and they are incredibly frustrating. And I think now that people are starting to work out how to play them as well, we're going to see a bump in there. I was toying with snotlings as the dark horse here, because thinking about a lineman that enables the team to do its thing with the low-cost lineman rule and swarming, they can be tricky little buggers anyway. If you don't have tackle, then you can be really stumped against them, and then you're getting them for free. So if someone kills them, what does it matter?
They've also got a sidestep as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are so irritating.
And I was actually going to ask a question to you all, because looking again, picking up on what Tom was saying and everyone about the stats, the only one that really differentiates just on the movement, strength, etc., is the goblins, which we've been talking about. So they've got one extra movement and they've got one extra armor. Now, would you reduce them back down to so they've got the same stats as the halflings and the gnomes, but give the goblin sidestep?
I don't know actually. What would I sacrifice a point of movement? And do you know what? Within the goblin team, I don't think I would, because I think firstly, we all know that goblins have been repeatedly hit over and over again with regards to their setup. But I think it's interesting watching the prolific goblin coach within our league and former podcast guest, Mr. Scott Norman, watching him do things within the team with the ball and chain, like plow into his own players in order to push them forward. And relying on the fact that out of 3 dice, at least one of them will be a stumble or a push. I think that's a really interesting tactic, and I don't think he would be as prone or as likely to do that if they were armor 7. I think because they're armor 8, you've got that tiny little bit of extra chaos and that kind of extra leeway in the chaos that you can do things like plow a ball and chain into your own players hoping for a good push. So I wouldn't. But would anyone else? Would anyone else sacrifice some stats for a skill like sidestep?
I don't think I would. Not for goblins. You look at them compared to the rest of tier 3, and it makes them stand out that little bit more, having the extra point of movement in there. I think if you asked a goblin coach, they'd probably say no as well. It makes their 1 turns harder as well.
Scott,
No, I wouldn't sacrifice anything.
keep them neat.
Yeah, I think, as Scott Norman's proved on so many occasions, if you can skill them up, and you've got the opportunity relatively quickly to skill them up in terms of doing a dedicated role within your team, and then you can get 2 or 3 of them as well. So I'm quite comfortable in terms of doing that as well. So yeah, and I love when I've seen people play goblins in a league over time, and they've got something with dodge, wrestle, frenzy, and it's just ridiculous to play, especially when you get hit 2 dice uphill, and it's a double pow, or it's a double, both down, or it's a double stumble, and it's just, or combination. It's just, yeah, it's ridiculous, but it's entertaining. So that would be my choice.
Well, I think we've kind of covered a good range of linemen there. We've got some choices I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting us all to be less keen on focusing on skills in tier 1. I guess I think tier 3 and tier 2, I think I probably predicted those as being the ones. But if you're listening to this and you think there's a lineman that we have overlooked, a lineman out there that you think is the best in the game, you think one of our choices is the worst in the game, or an underrated lineman within the selection that we have, Mr. Scott Bryant, if somebody wants to get in touch and tell us about their thoughts, how do they do so?
Yes, Mr. Chris Coe. If they do want to get hold of us, if they do want to tell us which is their favourite or most hated or most frustrating lineman to play, whether that's a positive or a negative thing, they can drop us a note. So drop us a note at the usual address now. You should know by now, everybody, dear listener. It's new dice please, all one word, all lowercase, newdiceplease@gmail.com. And before I forget, just good evening to Lord Pat Van Der East and all of our other regulars out there in listener land as well. But if listening is, they can't get enough of us and they need some dulcet vocabulary to fulfill their addiction of sound, Tom Hovel, how can people satisfy their craving?
Yep. So they can satisfy their eye holes by going onto YouTube and
satisfy the eye hole. So
I don't like that.
That needs to go. Did that make it to the to your Netflix series? Did that?
Yeah,
that's quite Rick and Morty, isn't it?
You can watch us on YouTube at Bloodbowl Live, and you can also hear us on the podcasts on through Spotify, Apple, all the places you can get podcasts. We are also on the socials, on Instagram and Blue Sky at New Dice Please.
Mr. Feeks, any final thoughts?
Just that there will not be any prizes for the first person to come up with why haven't we talked about dwarf linemen. We haven't, and that's that. Not touching it. We all like a bit of speed. Nope, not doing it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bryant. Thank you very much, Mr. Hovel. Thank you very much, Mr. Feeks. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We have been New Dice Please, and we will see you next time.